Hey folks, Mother's Day is coming up next month, but not real. I mean, you may be listening to this on May 1st. May 10th is the date. Don't forget it. With an aura frame, you can capture her magic, your mom, your grandma's, your wife's magic, and you can capture and relive the mom magic every day. We've talked about aura frames many times before on this show, how easy it is to set it up. It just takes 2 minutes to set up the frame using the Aura app. You can, without taking it out of the box, plug in these live photos and videos to up to 30 seconds. And you could use those live iPhone photos if you want. Some moms are going to really get a kick out of that. The photos look like real prints. Aura's frames have a meticulously calibrated high-resolution display. Unless you look really closely at the transition, you would never know that it's a screen. And you can send it to your mom for Mother's Day if you're not able to see her in person, or your grandma, and load it up yourself. Aura displays photos in true color and automatically adjusts for the light level of the room. At night, when you turn out the lights, your frame will also turn off to save energy. It's named the #1 digital picture frame by Wirecutter, The Strategist, Wired, and PC Mac, recommended by Good Morning America, The Today Show, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, and more. You have all these memories with your mom and your partner or your grandma, and they are probably all on your phone, and you may not know what to do with all those photos. Well, this is the perfect gift, especially if you don't know exactly what to get the mother in your life, because sentimentality is always the way to go. Make Mother's Day special with Aura frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. As I mentioned, you can save on the gifts moms love by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, listeners can get $25 off their best-selling Carver matte frame with code MAJORITY. That's AURA frames.com, promo code MAJORITY. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Link in the video description and at majority.fm and in the episode description. And now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live, steps, from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeremy Scahill of Dropsite News will be with us to give us the latest about Iran's negotiations with the U.S., and later in the show, Eli Hager of ProPublica will be with us to talk about the Trump administration's war on disabled people. Also on the program, Louisiana postpones the May 16th primary after the Supreme Court ravages the Voting Rights Act, setting up other southern states to eliminate blue districts in 2028. Meanwhile, the 6 conservative justices drop the pretense and attend Trump's state dinner with the king. Florida's legislature approves pro-Republican gerrymandered maps, sending it to DeSantis' desk. Janet Mills, sorry Mills gang, meaning users on Blue Sky, suspends her campaign for Senate in Maine, making Graham Plattner the presumptive nominee.
Honestly, appreciate her not dragging it out and making it ugly.
Yeah. The House passes a 3-year reauthorization of FISA's warrantless spy powers without warrant requirements, but Thune favors a 45-day extension. It expires tonight. House Republicans pass $75 billion in ICE funding in a way that sets up the Senate to skirt the filibuster. Oil prices top $126 a barrel as Trump considers resuming combat operations in Iran. He also told Netanyahu, apparently, that you can bomb Lebanon as long as it's surgical. I mean, that's
the metaphors we use.
Right. By the way, Israel's killed at least 14 people in the last 24 hours in such a surgical way, but this violates Iran's terms. We'll talk more about that with Jeremy. Israel intercepts the global Samud flotilla attempting to bring aid to Gaza in international waters. Pam Bondi will testify before the House Epstein probe on May 29th. And lastly, the Saudis are out on Live Golf. They're pulling out funding after the 2026 season, which is interesting.
Focus on the line.
Hopefully boxing is next.
The Saudi-U.S. relationship is interesting. Another thing I want to ask Scahill about, because they're not too thrilled that it seems like the U.S. maybe encouraged the UAE to leave OPEC. But all this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an M Majority Report. Thursday, Juniper J asked 2028 or 2026. This is a good question. If Louisiana is postponing the upcoming primary, it looks like they're going to gerrymander this year. You are correct that Louisiana is going to attempt to gerrymander this year, but that is not the case for many of the other southern states that would be most impacted by this. You have states like Georgia, you have states like Alabama, you have states like Texas and South Carolina. They have already passed their candidate filing deadlines. So Louisiana is a specific and special case, and it's not a coincidence that the Supreme Court made this decision really right beforehand. It gives the rest of the Republican states, even though they've passed these filing deadlines, time to make sure that minorities in their states have the least representation possible. Although you could see the Democrats respond in other areas and create multiple majority-minority districts. That would mean that they would continue to have to fight fire with fire, which is essential. But there's also, I mean, we need to be reinventing our electoral system more broadly and standardizing it. And
Democrats need to have an ability and a desire to make this kind of change for a positive, and as Republicans do, just to tear up something like the Voting Rights Act for a negative. There needs to be a positive vision here.
It's also really, I think, neutered the Democratic Party in many ways. Like, think of all of these Southern Democrats that represent the one blue district in their state, like Jim Clyburn, for example, who's running for re-election in his mid-80s. When you're the only show in town that way, it's really made the party more conservative. It's made them more susceptible to special interests. And it perhaps overall structurally isn't the most small d democratic. But we need, it can't just be Republicans that are trying to disenfranchise black people and Democrats throw their hands up. We need a massive electoral reform in addition to campaign finance reform. But let's talk about the economy for a second, because Republicans are starting to freak out a little bit. And they don't have any answer for how the oil shortages from Trump's criminal war on Iran that are being felt right now. As I mentioned in the headlines, oil prices have topped $126 a barrel. Let's show this chart really quickly from Investopedia, just to give people a sense of where we are, because you will hear some Republican lies in just a second that do not adequately or accurately relay this information. In June 2022, yes, gas prices hit $5.02 at its peak, and that was, of course, due to Russia invading Ukraine. And there were also existing inflationary supply shocks from the pandemic that were continuing through into 2022, and obviously contributed to persistent inflation, even though when you compare the U.S. to other countries, we did moderately better. But you saw gas prices continue to go down. Biden made a priority of kind of building up U.S. supply because he wanted to circumvent OPEC, the oil cartel that the UAE just left. And the UAE doesn't obviously produce in the same way Saudi Arabia does, but the UAE is historically likely to cozy up to the West. That's where Dubai is. They want to be a playground for the West. They were nice to Israel in the way that the U.S. likes. And so them leaving does, I think, undercut OPEC's strength to a degree. But Biden also attempted to do so by building up U.S. strategic reserves, and that had an effect, as you can see in that chart, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But right now, April 29th, 2026, that's $4.23 that you see there for gas prices. Now, keep that in mind, because that's not what you're going to hear from Steve Scalise, one of the top Republicans, in the House. Joe Kernan is so fed up with this because at a certain point, these financial news people who are, Kernan is a Republican sycophant, I get it, but they are concerned about their portfolios more than anything. That's why Kernan likes Republicans. But when Republicans are starting to get away from, making me richer, Kernan has to balance being a GOP sycophant and also looking out for his bottom line. And the others who watch this show, basically finance people. That's essentially all it is. But here is Kernan talking about the state of the economy and how it impacts the Republicans with Representative Scalise.
Prediction markets aren't friendly to the GOP's chances for holding the House. I mean, even the Senate is somewhat questionable. I don't know if you put any stock in that, but there were some developments this week.
No, I don't.
Seems like negative developments in Virginia.
Can I just say I agree with Scalise on the not putting stock in the prediction markets as the way to lead into a.
I don't think Scalise would disagree with that, by the way.
Right.
Developments in Virginia, I think, for Democrats, positive developments for Republicans in Texas. Something happening in Florida now. What is your? Do you think there's any way that your party holds on in November to the House?
Absolutely. And look, it's a path that is focused on turnout, number one, and delivery. What we've delivered to finally start turning this mess around that we inherited a year and a half ago. People that will remember, you go back 2 years ago, we were paying almost $6 a gallon for gasoline. Right now it's in the
Pause
threes.
it. Okay. Do I need to even fact check this again? We already went over this. That's not true.
$5.
Okay.
2 cents.
And that's not even the time frame that he's accurately referencing. That's 2022.
Right, 2 years ago it was actually around $3.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen a jump with the Iran conflict.
When were
but
we
it's
paying 6?
Still 50.
What,
well, two and a half years ago.
I
But
don't think
if
we
you
were.
look at,
That wasn't the
if you look
average
at where we
price.
are now, we're over 30% below where we were just 2 years ago. Today, we are 30% below where we were 2 years ago. It's still going to go lower
Trump
when
math.
Iran gets
That's my
resolved and
math.
the Strait of Hormuz gets open. But at the same time, did anybody want a nuclear-armed Iran? I think if you ask
No one
most
cares.
normal people, they would say absolutely not. When they just slaughtered 30,000 of their own people, they were about to get a nuclear weapon. And President Trump stopped that. But that's going to get resolved. President Trump's negotiating that right now.
When they say like they, regardless of the inflated death numbers,
Less
Iran,
inflated than Trump, who goes 46,000.
Yeah, Iran killed protesters. It's horrible. When they say their own people, they say that to distinguish them from Israel, who don't consider Palestinians their own people, despite being on land they occupy, and also like at least double that number officially. But anyway.
Yeah.
Now, he's negotiated a number of peace deals. They're trying to get a resolution between Russia and Ukraine right now, too. So if you look all across the board, we are lowering inflation. Interest rates have started to come down. They're not where we want to be, by the way. We have a lot of work to do. But do you want to go back to the days where interest rates were in double digits, where inflation was 50% higher than it was today? So we're bringing things down so that we can make life more affordable, but we have more work to do, and that's why we're going to hold the majority.
You must have been on vacation in California. I think 2 years ago, in April of 2024, we were at about 365. So we're actually above where we were then. And I'm not.
No, we were well into the fives under Biden. Well into the fives.
At one point, not 2 years ago.
Most of energy production shut down. Energy in the Gulf of America was shut down. Alaska was shut down. We opened that up, by the way, in the Working Families Tax
But 2
Cut.
years ago,
But we have these little things called charts, Steve.
They have no compunction about lying, even on a financial news network that is across this kind of thing. I want to finish the clip, though.
Average
More
was
production now.
exactly 2 years ago. The average was 365 to 367. And I'm not saying that $4 or whatever it is now, that the long-term goals that we're trying to accomplish in the Middle East, I'm not saying it's not worth it for a brief time, but it's definitely going to hurt people, obviously, this summer. If you're paying a lot. Andrew was telling me you're going to stay home at this point.
Okay,
right?
well, I don't know. I do not buy that the wealthy co-hosts of Squawk Boxes.
Andrew's canceling his road trip.
Yeah,
Gas prices.
you know, I'm not going to be able to fill up the RV. I was going to go cross country.
Holiday road.
Almost helicopter ride.
So the last time that interest rates were in double digits was during the Reagan administration. It was in the early 1980s, and you know why? It was Iran again. It was because of the oil shock of 1979, which set off a chain reaction of inflation caused by, yes, the Iran-Iraq War, but also the Iranian Revolution as well, which resulted in this current government because the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah, which the United States and the British installed so we could steal Iranian oil. So it's just fascinating to see history repeat itself in this way. Yet another, I mean, really kind of painful economic impact caused by our policy towards Iran. And this time it was an illegal criminal offensive bombing campaign and war that we waged against them. But and the reason that we wage this war is because of what I just mentioned, because the United States still wants the resources and wants dominance over the region. Israel is a big part of that. And they want to overthrow the very government that caused them pain the first time around. It's the same reason that we're starving Cuba right now, and that is such a horrifically sadistic policy. The capitalists that were humiliated decades ago are in the final throes of their life, and they're trying to right the wrongs of their inability to exploit parts of the world that they thought were theirs previously by right. Did Manifest Destiny ever go away, or do we just have cell phones now? In a moment, we're going to be talking to Jeremy Scahill, but first, a word from our sponsors. I would like to thank OneSkin for sponsoring today's episode and my skin today. If you like my skin, please don't ask to wear it, but you can look at OneSkin as an option to replicate it on your own face.
Is that your own, or is that in the ad read?
It is not in the ad
It's definitely Amazon.
It is my own. We're going, I know you know.
Yeah.
Want to talk about something else? You have heard us talk about OneSkin before, and whether you're someone who tries every new skin product that hits the market, or you've been using the same one or two things for years, at some point, you know, I'm in my 30s. You're realizing you got to keep up with your skin. I can't just lay in the sun and get burned all the time like I used to love. Julie loves this too, Sam's sister, and I've been using OneSkin ever since they became a sponsor, and I really can speak to the fact that it's just made my routine better. As we age, some skin cells stop functioning the way that they should. Longevity scientists call them zombie cells, and that's what's actually driving those visible signs of aging. The fine lines, the loss of firmness, the dullness that creeps in over time. And OneSkin's OS1 peptide was specifically engineered to address those. So you're getting everything you expect from great skincare with OS1 doing something most skincare was never built to do. I love the daily moisturizer, but really also the eye cream, which the skin around your eyes is very sensitive. I've kind of swung and missed with some other eye creams, but this is perfect. It's like the perfect kind of density. It's gentle on my skin, and I have really started to notice a difference. You don't need a complicated routine to get healthier, younger looking skin. Born from over a decade of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using code MAJORITY at oneskin.co/majority. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code MAJORITY. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Link in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. And lastly, you want to be more cultured? Well, 1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list. And if that's you, make this the year you finally check that off with Babbel, the language app that makes grammar fun and actually worth your time. Babbel lets you practice real-life conversation without the stress. You will build the confidence to speak up when it matters, so you can start speaking with confidence in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel recognizes that real-world connections are at the heart of language learning. Their courses are designed by real human beings and teach you relevant words and phrases you actually use. Their bite-sized lessons fit easily into your daily routine and are also easy to remember. Just 10 minutes a day is enough to start seeing real results. Babbel is phenomenal. I used it quite a bit before I went to Italy last summer, and you just have to kind of you don't have to. It makes it easy, but you get the basics in real life conversation skills, and you're able to travel and not feel like a dumb American, which we're all self-conscious about right now. Babbel adapts to your learning style and keeps you motivated with personalized learning plans, real-time feedback, and progress tracking. Babbel has over 25 million subscriptions sold worldwide, and with 14 languages to choose from, every course comes with a 14-day money-back guarantee. Here is a special limited-time deal for you. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/majority. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/majority, spelled BABBEL.com/majority. Rules and restrictions may apply. Link in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. Okay, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Jeremy Scahill. We are back, and we are joined once again by friend of the show, the great Jeremy Scahill, journalist and co-founder of Dropsite News, author of the books Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army, and Dirty Wars, The World is a Battlefield. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Nice to see you, Emma.
Nice to see you as well. So I wanted to start here because the Western press kind of largely goes along with this narrative you hear from the White House that is some version of Orientalism, really, about the Iranian government, that these are these savages purely motivated by religious fervor. They don't have the sophisticated nuance of Pete Hegseth. Your reporting, though, is very distinct in that it's important because you actually speak to members of the negotiation team. And I think that negotiating team, I should say. And I think that could be a really good place to start. If you could just name who the major players here are on the Iranian side.
I think it's important at the onset to just say that, despite the way that the White House and Trump-aligned media, and actually much of the broader mainstream corporate press in the United States portrays Iran, it is not a country that sort of circles around a cult of personality. Yes, it has a leader called the Supreme Leader, and there's a religious dynamic that is very clearly pronounced in terms of the Iranian state's identity. But if you actually peel back the layers and you examine it, for the past 47 years, Iran has built institutions, and it is a country that has plans of succession, that has government bureaucracy, that has rules, that has laws, that has structure. And I would challenge anyone to find a historical example that parallels what we've seen over the past 7 or so weeks, which is that the United States and Israel opened this war by assassinating the supreme leader of Iran, much of the political and military and intelligence leadership of Iran. And then Iran proceeds for 6 weeks to engage in both asymmetric and symmetric warfare against a far more militarily superior adversary, plus Israel, fighting against 2 nuclear powers, causes the evacuation of 13 American military bases, destroys much of the early warning radar detection systems. These are multi-billion-dollar systems, does far more damage to American military aircraft than the US was willing to initially admit, caused a massive global economic crisis, has managed to stand down against the United States in the Strait of Hormuz using asymmetric tactics. I would say that there isn't a historical analog to a country losing that much of its official public-facing leadership and then turning around and fighting off a far better armed and more powerful adversary.
How about a biblical one that would piss off Israel? Yeah. David and Goliath.
Well, I mean, if our ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, might as well be the spokesperson for the Israeli government when he endorsed this notion of a greater Israel stretching all the way to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And of course, he tries to invoke theology. And then at the same time, the U.S. tries to say, oh, the Iranians are the ones that are fighting a holy war, when the projection of the core mission was articulated by the U.S. ambassador to Israel as sort of the Israelis have a right to do all of these wars because of texts that were written thousands of years ago. So it's actually the U.S. with its war secretary who quotes Pulp Fiction instead of the Bible while pretending to know more about theology than the Pope. It's the U.S. that is projecting that it's waging a holy war. And in fact, Iran has handled this in a very strategic way. And, you asked a direct question about who are the major players here. The U.S. wants to focus in on individual people, and they tried to portray Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who's the speaker of the Iranian parliament, as sort of the man that they're going to do business with. But when you talk to Iranian officials and you say sort of, what is Ghalibaf's mandate when he goes into these meetings with J.D. Vance, for instance? And what they say is he is functioning under the auspices of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran. The new supreme leader, who is the son of the assassinated supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, does have veto power over that committee. But I've been told over and over that there is nothing that Ghalibaf would be able to do in those negotiations that has not already been signed off on. And I'll just note this as a reporter. I've been speaking directly to senior Iranian officials going back to even before this war started about the negotiations that were happening in Oman. And then after that, Geneva, when the U.S. then turned around in the middle of negotiations and started the war. And what I would say is that consistently, what Iranian officials have said is their position, or what is or isn't going to happen, generally speaking, plays out the way that they've claimed it was going to play out. I saw a similar dynamic unfold with the Gaza negotiations, where repeatedly the Trump administration was lying about what was happening in the negotiations, and officials from Hamas and Islamic Jihad were telling the truth. This isn't an endorsement of anyone. This is just stating a basic fact. What we saw, Emma, over the past 2 weeks was Donald Trump utterly humiliate the United States in front of the world. I mean, certainly he humiliated himself for anyone that actually understood the factual basis of what was happening. But he repeatedly said the Iranians are begging us to negotiate. I reported many, many weeks ago that it was in fact Steve Witkoff, his special envoy, that had been texting Abbas Arachi and others starting on the third or fourth day of the war saying, shouldn't we talk now? Because they had gotten cooked intelligence from Israel. They thought this thing was going to be a cakewalk. They thought they were going to do these assassinations and that everything was going to fall into place. And they've just made fools of themselves to the point where Trump says J.D. Vance is on an airplane. Then he says, actually, Steve Witkoff is on the airplane with Jared Kushner. And the Iranians were saying to me, we're not going to meet with them at all. Let them come, but they're going to be humiliated because we've told them we're not speaking to them until they lift the naval blockade, which we consider a violation of international law. And so the position that we're in right now is that the Iranians said from the moment this temporary ceasefire was agreed to on April 7th, that went into effect on April 8th, that they believe the most likely scenario is what Trump is threatening now, which is that they're going to resume the war and they're going to start bombing again. But what they said is, short of that, we are not going to capitulate. And we feel that we have the cards in our hand, despite what Trump says, that we have the time, Trump has the clocks, they've consistently underestimated us. And we're confident in our position right now because we have the 3 M's on our side. We have the munitions. They recognize the shortage of the interceptors in Israel. They recognize what's happened in the Gulf countries. We have the markets. You see what's happening to the price of oil and the global economic crisis that's also going to hit food supply because of fertilizer, natural gas supplies. If the Iranians were to sabotage internet undersea cables in the sea, which is an option that has been hinted at in media linked to the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, then you're going to see the pain get even harder. And then there's the midterm elections. This is becoming an utter disaster to the point where even Trump allies are starting to hint in media that they want this thing wrapped up soon. So the Iranians feel confident where they are. They think that Trump has painted himself into a corner and that all the United States has left is to just say, we're going to bomb their civilization. We're going to continue to bomb. We're going to bomb their civilian infrastructure. Well, they may do that. But what's going to happen in response is that Iran is going to absolutely light up the Persian Gulf and escalate its attacks, and it's going to resume very heavy ballistic missile strikes on Israel. So Trump right now keeps listening to the Israeli point of view and pretending that it's intelligence, and that's, I think, what's being briefed to the president. But deep down, they're in a panic because they know that the Iranians are not going to capitulate. I think that's become very clear.
So much I want to follow up with you on, but I want to maybe just pick up with what you were saying towards the end. That you've called the Israeli intelligence cooked. You've basically said that it's essentially their opinion that is being presented to Trump, or I would argue they're deliberately misleading. I mean, I read the CNN article maybe a month ago or so ago, and at the top it has the U.S. intelligence assessment of how much damage has been inflicted to Iranian sites. And then you go down towards the end of the article, and they also cite what the Israelis say, and it's essentially double. It was actually about, the capacity, the capabilities of Iran, not really the damage, rather. And this is a persistent pattern with the Israelis presenting the Americans with intelligence that furthers their objectives of dragging the United States into a war with Iran, because they know without U.S. naval and military presence that they're immensely vulnerable, as they have been even with this buildup in the Middle East. So can you just shed light on that dynamic and how frequently the Israelis mislead the Americans from an intelligence perspective, and how it keeps happening?
Benjamin Netanyahu basically has been prime minister for life of Israel. Yes, he had some periods when he was out of power, but even when he was in the United States living and was a Fox News commentator, and in fact, at periods, he literally slept in the childhood bed of Jared Kushner. He was a guest of the Kushner family while he was in the United States. And, there are great videos online that you can watch of 30 years of Benjamin Netanyahu proclaiming that Iran is on the verge of building or acquiring a nuclear weapon, when the U.S. intelligence estimates going back to at least 2003 was that the Iranians had suspended their interest or pursuit of weaponizing nuclear material. And of course, there's also the Iranian history of it, which is that there was a fatwa that was issued that said it was haram, that it would be a sin to possess a weapon of mass destruction. And that's not just rhetoric or some, sort of propaganda. That has been a very, very serious debate in Iranian society, with some powerful factions believing it was a mistake to not pursue a nuclear bomb, because you can look at Kim Jong-il sitting very pretty in North Korea in terms of the stability of his grip on the state, only because he has a nuclear weapon. So Netanyahu out in public has been selling this lie for a very, very long time. And the reason that I say it's cooked is that I think and I think you're right to an extent, that it's politicized and they're trying to give bad intelligence because they want to achieve an objective by manipulating the United States into doing certain actions. That's certainly true. But what we also know is that in the lead up to February 28th, the Israeli assessment was that the Iranian government was in a state of total chaos and that it was going to collapse, and that the protests that had happened in January, that were then, by President Trump's own admission, infiltrated by armed individuals who then began attacking police stations, religious sites, just murdering people that had any affiliation with the state, and also attacking people who were religious. Those of us who pointed that out at the time were tarred and feathered for suggesting that Iran's narrative is not entirely lying, that there actually is foreign infiltration here, that Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, came out and said it, that very influential Israeli commentators said it. So Netanyahu, I think, seized on that moment from early January. He put it into the U.S. Intelligence stream that the Iranian government was in a severely weakened state, and that by heavily bombing them, by assassinating the supreme leader, that they were going to essentially push the final sort of parts of the state off the cliff. And then it was going to be an uprising, and they're going to have Kurds coming in. I think a lot of that serious U.S. intelligence people knew was very dubious. And yet you have the political dynamic here as well. You have the fact that the Trump administration is just flush with people who have sold their souls to an Israel first agenda, despite their rhetoric about it being America first. And I think you had a perfect combination of just idiocy and nefarious intentional manipulation of intelligence. I say idiocy also because Trump has people around him who are absolutely obsessed with destroying the Islamic Republic of Iran. Neocons, people like John Bolton, even though Trump claims that he was a rat who was going to start World War III, Trump is basically doing everything that people like John Bolton wanted. And I think it was put into Trump's head that he's going to go down in history as the president who forever destroyed the Islamic Republic of Iran, avenged the '79 revolution, avenged the taking of the U.S. embassy at the onset of the Islamic Revolution. Like that, combined with the Israeli political influence, combined with the cooking of intelligence, and combined with the fact that there are absolutely bona fide imbeciles in this administration, plus financial connections of Jared Kushner to all of these Gulf countries and to Netanyahu and to Israel, meant that you had a kind of perfect storm to create this absolutely catastrophic war, even from an American strategic standpoint. This was a total and complete disaster. And as Friedrich Merz, the poodle who poses as the Chancellor of Germany, said, the Iranians have humiliated the United States in the negotiations and by showing that they can prolong this.
You mentioned Jared Kushner, and I want to ask you more about that, because Witkoff and Kushner, Tweedledee and Tweedledummer, have made numerous blunders. They don't seem to have they don't have diplomatic experience that meets this moment, but also they seem to have don't have the technical knowledge about things like uranium enrichment. I am curious, I guess, here, how Iran is even able to trust these negotiators. And is there any schism between that pair and J.D. Vance? And I believe that you've written about that. If that's the case, why is Trump even continuing to send Witkoff and Jared Kushner unless they're just essentially there to be cutouts for the Israeli government in these negotiations?
I would separate Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. I think that Jared Kushner very much knows what he's doing. I think he is very close to Netanyahu. I think that even in Oman and Geneva before the war, when they were negotiating, that Kushner was in regular contact with the Israelis, possibly even behind the back of some White House officials. And I think that you have to view Jared Kushner not as Trump's representative on behalf of the United States, but representing the Trump crime family. And when you view it through that lens, and you also recognize that Jared Kushner has deep financial, religious, and political ties to Israel, and also to some of the Gulf countries that wrongly and wildly erroneously believe that this was going to be a sort of swift defeat of Iran, I think you start to understand that Kushner is not actually operating through a lens of American national security. If you look just at the example of the United Arab Emirates, which, of course, just announced that it was leaving OPEC and OPEC Plus, going back to the first Trump administration, MBZ and the rulers of the United Arab Emirates were very, very close to Trump. They had these meetings in Trump Tower that also, interestingly, involved the Saudis. And the collusion that was happening there when everyone was talking about Russia was that they were looking at regime change in Iran. This goes back to even before President Trump was sworn in his first administration. Jared Kushner is bankrolled to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars by the sovereign wealth funds of multiple Gulf countries, primarily the UAE in terms of his political allies. They were the first country and the most prominent country to enter into Jared Kushner's crown jewel, the Abraham Accords. They're viewed by many as the kind of Arab Zionist entity in the Middle East. They have a kind of Cold War that's been going on with Saudi Arabia that is centered around the UAE's support for the RSF in Sudan.
Let me just add and say that the UAE and Ukraine just entered into a defense pact as well, just another indication of how they're trying to completely align themselves with the West.
So what does the UAE play here? The UAE has developed very close ties to Israel, particularly since the Abraham Accords were signed on an intelligence level, on a defense level, on a political level. The UAE also perceives that it can become the favored Arab nation of the United States. And so, just today, Trump was heaping praise on the decision by the UAE to exit OPEC. The UAE also was very heavily targeted by the Iranians, in part because of its close relationship with Israel, because it has allowed Mossad to operate from within its borders, because it is known across the Arab world as being extremely close to Israel. And so when we look at the whole configuration of what's happening right now, these GCC countries, these Gulf countries, were completely caught off guard by the ferocity and sustained nature of Iran's retaliatory strikes, and also by the quality of Iranian intelligence. The Iranians hit the CIA station in Saudi Arabia. They hit some hotels where the Iranians claim, and by the way, I do not believe that anyone should be bombing a hotel. When the Israelis have tried to claim that they have a right to bomb hospitals or civilian targets because, quote unquote, Hamas is inside of them, that's a war crime and it should be denounced. But we should also understand what the Iranians are essentially taking the same position that other actors throughout history have taken when they've hit civilian targets, which is there are military personnel inside of it. And it turned out that they were correct, that the U.S. had actually evacuated soldiers and placed them inside of civilian targets. So the Iranians were making essentially the argument, well, they use these civilian targets as human shields. I raise these examples just to say that the level of intelligence, the information that the Iranians had about targets was so sophisticated that it sent shockwaves through these Gulf countries. The Iranians managed to penetrate Kuwaiti airspace with a conventional aircraft, with an F-5 warplane early on in the war, to circumvent the U.S. defenses and U.S. warplanes. They managed to enter Kuwaiti airspace with a conventional warplane. This is, for people who are in the military, understanding that Iran was able to do this to the United States, this is a rare occurrence. And they carried out airstrikes that actually killed American soldiers. It's not just the drones and the ballistic missiles. The Iranians hit at times on a symmetric level against U.S. targets in these Gulf countries. So when the Iranians go to the negotiating table, to bring it full circle, with Jared Kushner, they know he's representing the most nefarious strands of politics in the GCC. They know that he's representing Israel, but most importantly, they know that he's representing sort of the Trump family business. With Witkoff, it's like you might as well be sitting with like a fourth grader, because the Iranians put on the table very significant what they call flexible terms on a wide range of issues. Trump could have taken a huge L and danced all around the world saying he did what Barack Hussein Obama could never do. He could have gotten a deal that he would have been celebrating for like the rest of his time on this earth, that he got the Iranians to do X, Y, and Z. So, and the Iranians were saying, when I spoke to them before this, when the Omanis were mediating, they were saying, our sense is that the Omanis understand how significant it is we're putting on the table. And remember, Emma, what happened? The Omani foreign minister, and remember, the Omanis have been doing this for decades. They are the chief mediator on the nuclear issue between the United States and Iran going back decades. The Omanis fly their foreign minister to Washington. He meets with J.D. Vance and other top U.S. officials. He believes we are on the verge of a highly significant historic agreement between the Trump administration and the Iranians, and he comes out and he says that in public. Less than 48 hours later, the United States launches this war against Iran. So what is it that I'm saying to you? What I'm saying is that the Iranians are saying, on the one hand, they brought no technical experts with them, not a single technical expert from the U.S. government with Iran. They sent Trump's golf buddy and his son-in-law. That's who the U.S. sent. Iran is there with nuclear experts, with PhDs in American studies, with people that understand every single bit of minutia about the 2015 JCPOA and the American position on a whole range of issues. And we get Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. So the Iranians are saying, on the one hand, they had no idea what we were talking about. They didn't understand the technical issues. And that led to things like Steve Witkoff going on Fox News and saying, that they're days away from building a weapons grade, blah, 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 like things that make absolutely no sense, that even Dick Cheney would be blushing at the level of incompetence of the lies. But on the other hand, they said, it's so clear to us that none of this was about the nuclear enrichment issue. This was about wanting to set it up to go to war, buying time to get their assets in place. So that's what the Iranians were dealing with. On the one hand, not a single technical expert, real estate bros at the table, Trump's son-in-law at the table, and then a political agenda that was clear as day that they wanted to go forward and do this war, and they were waiting to get all their assets in place.
I mean, it's another pattern of the United States with, again, this Trump crime family infrastructure, lulling the Iranians into a false sense of security via negotiations, and then bombing them, or at the very least, the appearance of negotiations. And this is
that's
also
why there's no negotiations right now.
Right.
The Iranians they're keenly aware of this, and that's why they're not. When Arachi was in Pakistan, the Iranian foreign minister, that's why they were saying, we're not meeting with Kushner and Witkoff again. You asked something that I think we should not let pass, which is about J.D. Vance. The reason that they wanted J.D. Vance, yes, the Iranians had read the reports that J.D. Vance had been somewhat of a dissident in the Trump administration. I think those are a bit exaggerated, or the idea that J.D. Vance
he wants to set himself up in 2028 and distance himself from this unpopular war. Yeah.
That's true. But I do think that, part of the role, and in fact, J.D. Vance said this last night or this morning in an interview, he was responding to the Atlantic magazine story. The Atlantic, of course, edited by a former Israeli prison guard turned American journalist Jeffrey Goldberg. But the Atlantic, had done this report about J.D. Vance raising these issues. And Vance sort of said in an interview in response to that report, he was denouncing it and saying it's false, but at the same time, then kind of co-signing its sort of main line, which is that he had raised certain issues. And what he said is, that's my job. Actually, that's true. Joe Biden, when they were talking about Afghanistan policy and he was Barack Obama's vice president, had to play devil's advocate and be the one to ask tough questions. That is supposed to be the job of the vice president. So I think there's some exaggeration about J.D. Vance's sort of anti-interventionism. But having said that, I think the Iranians recognize that. But on the other hand, they recognize also that J.D. Vance, if the Republicans somehow clean up and he's the nominee and J.D. Vance wins, he could be a guy that they're going to be dealing with for a long time. So they send someone very serious, Ghalibaf, who was the Speaker of the Parliament, but also was in the IRGC and fought in the Iran-Iraq War and has a lot of credibility and a lot of heft behind him. They send him and they say he's going to meet with the sitting vice president of the United States. That was a coup for the Iranians to have that high of a level. Barack Obama never sat down with them. Joe Biden never sat down with them. They sent John Kerry. So from the Iranian perspective, it wasn't just about, they think Vance is going to be better. It has to do with the prestige of it and the fact that Iran felt that this was the best leverage they'd had in a very long time. And what I was told by Iranian sources is that the divisions between the Kushner-Witkoff playground and then sort of J.D. Vance sitting at the table were very, very clear. And what they say is, the American media is believing this nonsense from Trump that we're in disarray. Look at them and out in public. Trump's telling you that J.D. Vance is having a five-star meal on Air Force Two right now when he's literally sitting in the Naval Observatory mansion. They say Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are on an airplane coming to meet Arachi when Arachi just got on a plane to leave Islamabad. They're in disarray.
Absolutely. And this whole, Trump's attempt to puff out his chest the other day, he's truthing out AI generated images of him saying no more Mr. Nice Guy. Like, this is a humiliation. And just to bring it back full circle to what we were talking about earlier, Iran can wait this out and they can punish the United States, one, for this criminal offensive war, but two, for their really duplicitous tactics in talks, because they can make them be sincere by inflicting damage. And that's the other part of this that I just can't wrap my head around. We played this clip yesterday of Marco Rubio saying that Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz is the equivalent of an economic nuclear weapon. Well, if that's the case, then you were able to really easily identify that they were in possession of said economic nuclear weapon by, looking at a map. Like, this whole thing has been so obviously, the way that Iran has been able to use their geographic advantage to make the West feel pain. There is historical precedent for it too, but it should have been known by this administration as it had been known by previous ones. So I guess my real question is, how much is Iran winning? And what are their key demands that you think are most likely to bring the Trump administration to heel?
The Iranians said from the very beginning, before the first bombs fell on February 28th, that they were going to conduct ferocious retaliatory strikes across the Persian Gulf and Israel, and that they were going to block the U.S. and any allied ships from transiting the Strait of Hormuz. You didn't need a classified intelligence briefing to know this. In fact, we did multiple stories speaking to Iranian officials describing prior to the war starting exactly what they were going to do, and then they did that. And if we, a small independent news outlet, were able to understand that the Iranians said that they were going to implement a mosaic defense, they were going to put command authority further down the chain, that they weren't going to do back channel choreography of what targets they were going to hit, that they were going to intentionally try to inflict pain on the United States military and on the US-led global economy. All of these things, Trump keeps saying no one knew this was going to happen. And everyone knew it was going to happen who actually was paying attention. But when you cartoonize the quote unquote enemy to such a degree that you cease to believe that there's any logic behind their actions or that they're not rational actors, you do a disservice to your own cause. And so it's this combination of ignorance, hubris, and then a very sophisticated Israeli psychological and intelligence operation targeting the highest levers of power in the United States, both openly and clandestinely through the contamination of the intelligence presentation process to the President of the United States, who, by the way, has just cast aside all of the subject matter experts that the United States had at its disposal. But I don't think that we should get too far down the line of overstating the stability of Iran's economy or the overall situation. Iran has been very severely bombed. Iran's civilian infrastructure has taken a very severe hit. More than 3,000 Iranians have been killed. The first major massacre we knew of was at the girls' school, where more than 165 people, most of them young girls, were murdered in a U.S. attack in the opening moments of this strike. And the Iranian political situation prior to this was in a very uncertain state because the sanctions had really punished Iranian society. Their currency was in massive depreciation. Inflation was off the charts. The the protests that were happening were overwhelmingly on economic issues. And so what the U.S. war has done is unified almost every sector of Iranian society against the United States and Israel. And it's going to be for the Iranian people to decide when the dust settles what they want their future to look like. But I think that what has happened is that the U.S. war has brought Iranians together in opposition to this. And so right now, it does seem like there is broad consensus in Iran that regardless of who the power structure is, the sovereignty of the country is not up for negotiation. And I think that that is a very powerful weapon in the hands of the Iranian negotiators. They understand that regardless of what Iranians think about the state, generally speaking, Iran is behind them in the stance that they're taking with the United States right now.
Jeremy Scahill, Dropsite News is essential reading on this very topic and more. If you want to understand our foreign policy in a way that isn't so severely slanted towards the United States perspective, it's important to continue to read Dropsite. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Emma.
Quick break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with Eli Hager of ProPublica on the Trump administration, basically targeting disabled adults with cuts. Be right back. We are back, and we are joined now by Eli Hager, writer at ProPublica, here to discuss his piece, "The Trump Administration Aims to Penalize Disabled Adults Who Live with Their Families." Eli, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So Trump is now essentially, via the supplemental social security income, moving to, at least the administration is, according to multiple sources who spoke to you at ProPublica, they're moving to really severely cut or even eliminate these important benefits for hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities. And this is targeting people who live in the same home as their families. Could you explain what they are moving towards and how this works?
Right. So the system that already exists is that people who have disabilities who choose or need to live with family members or with friends have their SSI benefits reduced by a certain amount, because the idea is that you're getting that help from your family or friends, so you don't need as much of the federal benefit. But there's always been an exception to that rule, which is that if you live in a quote unquote, if public assistance household, so like if the family is lower income and they're receiving SNAP or TANF benefits or these other programs, then it's understood that the family can't just support you. It's a lower income family. The Trump rule would reverse this approach specifically with SNAP households. So essentially, if you live in a household that receives SNAP, you're going to have your SSI benefit reduced by a third, which could be hundreds of dollars a month, just for the fact of living with your family. If it wouldn't be reduced by a third if you lived on your own.
And which disabilities, adults that are going to be impacted by this, and children, I guess. What kinds of disabilities are we talking about here that are going to be targeted because they still live at home?
Right. So a lot of the most common situations would be young adults and middle-aged adults with intellectual disabilities who still live at home. So a common example would be a young adult from age 18 to 30 or 35 who's still living with their parents because they have Down syndrome or autism that causes them to be nonverbal and other things that prevent them from being able to support themselves and make a full living. So that would be one common situation. Another common situation would be older people who would essentially be destitute without the help of the SSI program and have to move back in with their adult children because they have no other place to live and no other way to survive. So both of those groups of people would have their SSI disability benefits cut by a third, again, hundreds of dollars a month, just for the fact of continuing to or having to live with their families.
Tell us a bit about supplemental security income when we're talking about SSI. I was reading your piece, not shocked, but dismayed to see that despite the fact that millions of people are disabled or unable to work because of disabilities or the old age, which you're speaking about there, that a very small fraction of people who even apply to this, to supplemental security income, are even approved.
Right. It's a very rigorous process, which is what makes it somewhat misleading when the current administration talks so much about fraud and so on in some of these programs. Fraud does exist in safety net programs, but in the SSI program specifically, the process is incredibly complicated, and the steps you have to go to can often take years. You have to not only demonstrate that you have a severe disability, or that you're essentially indigent in old age. You also have to provide extensive financial records showing everything about the household where you live and your income and assets. You also can't have assets over $2,000, so people can't save more than $2,000 or
right.
more than $2,000. So it's
I remember that horrible story. We've covered that before. Yes.
Right. It's extremely rigorous, and so for that reason, less than a third of applicants to the program are approved, and even after they're approved, they undergo near constant supervision of their finances. As often as every month, they have their finances and household arrangements double checked to make sure that they essentially still qualify for the program.
And this would create wildly, this wildly increase the paperwork requirements that are already as burdensome as you describe.
Right, exactly. So that's what happens for a lot of SSI recipients. But the paperwork requirements are reduced if you're in a lower income household, because it's understood that they sort of use how say the SNAP program or another one of these programs has already demonstrated that this is a lower income household. The Social Security Administration accepts that and understands it to be a lower income household, and they don't make those households do all of the same paperwork and check-ins. What this rule would affect is those precise households, the lowest income households. They would now have to do all of those check-ins as often as every month if anything changes with their living circumstance, like they split up utility bills slightly differently with the people they're living with, or somebody, let's say, one of their siblings is there for a while and helps them with one of their living expenses. They're supposed to report that every month, or else they could potentially be billed for being overpaid by Social Security.
Can you talk about the alternatives that are suggested here for where these Americans can live and get the care that they need? Because what essentially this seems like it's incentivizing people to do is to be forced to institutionalize forcing these disabled people into institutions. And you've heard some rhetoric about this from the Trump administration. They're piloting certain programs where they're, I believe it was in Utah we covered this. They want to essentially intern a bunch of homeless people there. The administration has talked before about how we need to bring back these kinds of institutions. And I guess my reading of this is that perhaps there's some financial incentive here for institutions that would take on these people with disabilities.
There could be. I haven't done the reporting to support that, but a lot of the cost of housing people in institutional facilities then it becomes a Medicaid cost. So it continues to be a taxpayer cost. We actually did a comparison, like for one of the young people this would affect in Philadelphia, who we wrote about. cutting her benefits would essentially save taxpayers $11 a month. If that means that her family, without that income for the household, if that means that her family can no longer support her there in the household, she would instead have to move into a group home or nursing facility, and that would cost taxpayers hundreds of dollars a day. So it's increasing the cost to taxpayers by hundreds of dollars to not support them at home and rather have them live in institutional facilities.
We have a question from a viewer, Frank Fisto. Would this affect an adult that has disabilities that lives with a senior collecting Social Security?
It would if anybody in the household receives SNAP. I don't know if anybody receives SNAP, but it's a change particularly affecting these SNAP households.
Which is just, I mean, SNAP is food stamps. Like
it's just for food. I mean, so SSI is supposed to be an income that you can use for. I mean, like if you have a severe disability, you have Down syndrome, you're been demonstrated by medical experts and a judge not to be able to work and make a living. It's supposed to be a very basic income to be able to support yourself, and SNAP only covers obviously food.
The viewer writes in and clarifies, saying they both receive SNAP in this household, so this would obviously be impacted then.
I believe so, yes.
And it's just, how is this rule change happening within the context of a SNAP program? I mean, this is obviously quite different when we're talking about SSI and disability. The ability to feed oneself is separate and distinct, and also it's even more critical for if you have disabilities and maybe have difficulty leaving the home, for example, or you can't shop for yourself.
Right. I think your question is about how does it interact with the SNAP program?
Yeah. I mean, or even how they are justifying the connection.
Yeah. Well, so historically, the connection has been that, the Social Security Administration has understood that families and households that receive public assistance, it's sort of a metric for that family being lower income. Mm-hmm. So if a person with a disability moves into that household because they can't support themselves on their own, it's understood that the household can't just support them, and that their SSI benefit is going to need to be their complete benefit. It shouldn't be cut just because there's other people living in the home. And this rule change would specifically no longer use SNAP as that sort of metric, and so just say it doesn't matter if the SNAP program has already determined your household to be very low income. We're going to reduce your SSI benefit anyway and no longer have that exception.
Lastly here, we do have some people writing in because I think they're concerned about their situation. Socialist Peach says, what about folks who live on their own and rely on SSI and Medicaid waivers? Perhaps I could answer that this is about disabled adults that live with their parents or with another family member, right?
Right. This is a penalty for living with others. So if you live alone, you wouldn't be affected. I mean, yeah.
And can you just speak about, you talk to people in your piece, and it's just abundantly clear that if you have a mental disability, some of them make it so that living at home is often much more preferable. There's a familiarity, there's a comfort. There is obviously, if you're living with a parent as well, you're going to be saving and not have to put yourself into one of these institutions or be put in one of these institutions. But just the psychological safety that is often present for people with intellectual or mental disabilities and their ability to live at home.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, there's an interesting coalition building around this issue. So I spoke with some evangelical groups who care a lot about this, and essentially they see it as a family issue, a family values issue, in the sense of keeping families together and it being better for people to be able to be with their families rather than separated into institutions or potentially living on their own with little support. So the SSI program helps families stay together in their view. And as you say, if we also spoke to people who have, say, adult children with Down syndrome and autism to where they're nonverbal and things like that. But it gives people sort of a sense of pride to be able to be a part of their household and contribute to their household a little bit, help pay for the utilities, that sort of thing. So it definitely makes, I think anybody watching this knows the value of family. So it definitely has those benefits.
Lastly, the one really silver lining here is this has not been implemented yet. It's just you have multiple sources that are saying that this is the direction that it's going in. Can you just give people a sense of what the timeline is for this potential change to happen?
Right. So as with any executive branch regulation, it has to go through a whole process. So we have the reporting to show that they've announced that they're doing this rule, that they're working on it. It's currently at the Office of Management and Budget, which is essentially the White House budget office, where they edit the regulation and they sort of consider it against all the priorities of the White House and the administration. And so it's at that stage. They have to consider whether to formally publish it as a notice of proposed rulemaking, which is the wonky term. And then once that happens, there will be an opportunity for public comment. So anybody watching this can write in. Once that happens, they can write in with their comments about what they think about the rule. And then the Social Security Administration is supposed to take into account those comments before finally publishing the new rule.
Well, we always have the Capitol switchboard number in the description wherever you're watching this. If you want to call your member of Congress or your senator, it doesn't hurt to get this on their radar. And you can look at ProPublica and Eli's reporting. It's called "The Trump Administration Aims to Penalize Disabled Adults Who Live with Their Families." And you can read that article, get informed about it, and call your representative or your senator and tell them to object to this. Eli Hager, writer at ProPublica. You can read his piece that I just mentioned at ProPublica. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course. With that, folks, we're going to wrap up the free part of this program. We'll head into the fun half. We've got some fun for you. I mean, it is fun that Janet Mills has dropped out. We'll talk about that a bit.
That's fun. I'd just like to make a point on the interview we just got over with. Is this brings us back to our old friend Bill Clinton, and the welfare reforms he did in the 90s. This is from The Guardian. In 1996, when welfare reforms were introduced in a coalition between President Bill Clinton and Republicans, 68% of families in the U.S. living below the poverty line received cash assistance. That has since fallen to just 23% nationally and even lower in many southern states without alternative forms of welfare filling the gap. In Georgia, the proportion dropped from 98% to just 7%. And people talk about welfare queens and that sort of thing. The truth is that was a fixation or a fixture of racist imaginations, and that who was actually being benefited from that was people who were caring for people. Like in large part, it was keeping people together with members of their family who needed more assistance. And we said, actually, what you need to do is go apply for Walmart. Right. Or one of those, and leave, and whatever happens to the family member that you care for with government assistance, just screw them. Just a heinous, attack on our society that, again, came from the left of center with, Republicans. So that's a bipartisan attack on America.
Exactly right. Brandon, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. What's happening on the discourse?
Oh, well, it's been a banner week for the discourse. Obviously, last week we hit 20,000, and we've been celebrating this week by delving into the various conspiracies related to Donald Trump's newest shooting incident that he's trying to sell to the public. So we've been doing that. Erica Kirk has a new video out. Candace has a new video out about Erica Kirk's new video. And we've also been watching, I don't know if you've seen this, but Russell Brand's incredibly incriminating interview with Piers Morgan. Some are saying the most incriminating interview anyone's ever done.
Many are
Besides
saying
that one
that.
where that guy, well, except for that one where that guy literally admitted to murder, like in the interview. He was just like, yeah, no, I did it. But besides that, like.
Wait, which one is that? Robert Durst are you talking about?
Yeah, we kept the hot mic on and burped, and he's like, I killed them all, didn't I?
Yeah.
Crazy.
But yeah, but besides incidents like that, it was incriminating. So yeah, we've been having a really good time, but we're 100 away from 8,000 on Twitch. We are 100 away from 21,000 on YouTube. So definitely a good day to join the discourse.
Always a good day to join the discourse.
Always a good day.
Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning and with the Jacobin Show?
Yeah, tomorrow, May Day, Jacobin Show is doing a live stream. We'll be live at 3 o'clock Eastern time, so I won't be here for the fun half. But check out David and I. We'll have a bunch of fun Jacobin guests and some activist-y type folks, and we'll just talk about the workers' holiday.
All right. Check that out, folks.
Oh, also follow me on Instagram. I'm like 1,200 away from 10,000, which is the big money in Instagram.
Oh, yeah. I'm 100 away from 20. So let's follow Matt first, though.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Well, when you follow Brian, you get stand-up clips and little sketches and things like that.
When you follow Matt, you get hot selfies.
I'll take myself.
Which is way more valuable.
I did get a lapel mic, and so I might be doing some of those videos where I clip it onto like a book or something like that.
All right.
Oh, we got Binder in that.
Stepping up your game. Yeah, while we bring in Binder, I'll read some IMs here. Skid Mark Twin. Can we see a picture of Emma in her tomboy era? No!
Just look at Kristen Wiig in the Michael Jordan jersey on Fallon or whatever. That's what it looks like.
It really was. It was. I mean, I think I scrubbed a lot of those pictures with the short haircut at one point. But yes, I did dress in boys' clothes for a while, in like 4th and 5th grade. The People's Eyebrow, my God, is the U.S. a cruel place? Yes, exactly. Oh, we have Binder. Hello, Matt Binder.
Hello.
What's happening on your shows?
YouTube.com/Matt Binder tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Join me and the rest of the Leftist Mafia crew for Leftist Mafia.
Do it. All right, guys.
We're pounding a certain area.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
That pairs quite nicely with the Michigan Fist. That Michigan Fist.
I want that Michigan Fist!
I still maintain that that just somehow makes it so much hornier. Because I've gotten the taste of the Michigan Fist, and now I want that Michigan Fist.
Feels like something you should see on HBO at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
All right, guys. We are heading into the fun half. See you there.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait. Whoa. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there. Wait, what? You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. What? Tour, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered a tour, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
wow.
Sushi.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind.
So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Tour.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid.
Had this debate 7,000 times.
A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Tour.
I'm losing out my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like, I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. Willy Wonka tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. What's that offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. What's that offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's poker with the boys. I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's poker with the boys. That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's poker. Let's go, Joey. Tour? Sushi and poker with the boys. Take it easy, Dan. Tour? Sushi and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys. Delusional. Tour?
Deluded.
Sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Poggers.
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore.
Do it anymore.
It was so much easier when the Majority Report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's
Now,
one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Ultraviolet.
Tour?
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors thesis about it.
Oh, she wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I don't have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
We are back, folks. It is the fun half. Let's read some IMs. Todd from Raleigh, are the Rangers and Knicks doing great? Well, no, the Rangers are one of the worst teams in the league last year, but the Knicks play tonight, and I'm not going to make a prediction.
They looked all right. What was it? 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
Knicks are the best, New York's best team right now out of all the sports, quite frankly. I mean,
the Mets. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Oh my God.
$4 tickets today is what's going on.
That is the one positive. You can go see a real Mets game for real cheap.
At that point, you got to be close to like the free buses logic of like it costs more to take tickets, so we should just let people in
For free, right?
Yeah. Hope they buy some concessions.
Sergeant Flux, I remember calling to MR, which feels years ago, to talk about SSI, but that $2,000 asset limit was set up in 1989, and if adjusted for inflation, the amount would be $5,200 today. In fact, I remember Sam saying something to the effect that there should be no asset limit on such a benefit.
Yeah.
That is no less true now than it was then.
It should be universal. It's a way to shake down people who aren't extremely wealthy.
Frank Fista said Zoran should have never hugged Mr. Met. It has unfortunately coincided with this massive losing streak. But, you know, maybe Steve Cohen should stop tweeting or something like that. Maybe that's what's really impacting it.
I mean, I went to that. I took those free tickets that last time when he complained that only like 44% of people who took the free tickets actually showed up to the stadium. I was in the 44% or whatever. But it was so weird to see him complain about that. I mean, yeah, of course, it's if you take free tickets, you should go to the actual game and not take away someone else who actually wanted to go's ticket. But I mean, why is he complaining about that on Twitter? And that's when they started the losing streak.
Yep. We're Everywhere says Republicans are big fans of family members helping to raise babies, apparently, unless they're disabled and grow into adults. They also won't allow you to have an abortion, say, if your fetus has an abnormality. And if you are to bring that child into the world and the baby has significant health issues, they're going to cut the benefits that allow you to take care of them. So that is Republican logic 101. Now let's just try to be happy for a second here with some good news. 78-year-old Janet Mills has suspended her campaign for Senate in Maine. Graham Plattner is now the presumptive nominee for the Democrats in the Maine Senate race. He's already been acting in that manner, going at Susan Collins really since the start of his campaign, but ramping it up recently because there are things like polls that show him. An Emerson College poll had him over 25 points over Mills that was released last month.
She never really had a good showing at all.
Well, I gotta say, one, I think people are really sick of those Oppo dumps. They want to hear what you're going to do for me. What are you going to do for me? And two, some of the Mamdani advisors worked or set up that Plattner campaign. I believe Morris Katz is one of them. And they were immensely strategic in getting out ahead of any other candidate. Like, it's not been discussed enough how much Plattner benefited from the fact that he got a head start in this race. And he was able to define himself before the Oppo dumps from the DSCC were able to define him. And Janet Mills seemed completely half-hearted the entire time as well. She also is indicative of the exact kind of politician that people are disgusted with right now. Old and clinging on to power, not fresh with new ideas, an institutionalist that believes in things like the filibuster. And it's not what people are interested in. Plus, I was reading that she, despite having the backing of the DSCC, meaning the Democratic Senate arm, for all of their fundraising prowess and everything, she's lagging in fundraising both behind Plattner, who took home over $4 million in the first quarter, and Susan Collins, who raised $3 million in the first quarter. Mills is lagging behind all three, and she only had $1 million in cash on hand. She raised $2.6 million, meaning she had spent a lot of it too. So no one wanted to fund her campaign. She was running out of money, and she bowed out. So just like an immense humiliation to Schumer and Gillibrand and the DSCC and their horrific candidates. The only ones that are having success that they've backed, by the way, they backed Haley Stevens. We'll talk about her later. The only ones that are having success are already good candidates with statewide name recognition, like Sherrod Brown, who's already a senator before, like Peltola in Alaska, who already had a statewide recognition. But even in Angie Craig, isn't that the DSCC candidate in Minnesota? We can look that up later. But either way, it's been between Stevens and Mills in this instance. It's been really embarrassing for the DSCC, and there you go. I hope Peggy Flanagan pulls out in that race. Pulls it out. Sorry, not pulls out. Pulls it out.
Craig has the advantage. Get out of the race.
Yeah,
Peggy.
no.
Craig has the fundraising advantage because of the DSCC, but Flanagan is pulling ahead from everything I've seen.
So, with all of that context and celebration that Plattner's going to be the Democratic nominee against Susan Collins.
Sorry, just to jump in here again. This is from the AI overview, so take it with a grain of salt. But Craig is perceived as a moderate, quote, battle-tested leader. That's the new thing.
They love that term.
That's the new term for moderates who aren't going to offer you anything but
it's
be
funny
a Democrat.
That Mills is also running against somebody who's literally battle tested.
Literally been in war theaters. Anyway, sorry.
No, but battle tested, they've used that over and over again, which is just another way to say an institutionalist. As people want freshness, they don't necessarily want the scars from the previous kind of establishment politics. Plattner's making the rounds. He went on Jon Stewart's show, and here he is talking to Jon Stewart. What number is this? Oh, here it is. About how DNC leadership, despite the fact, and this was a day or two before Mills dropped out, DNC leadership has not reached out to him.
The Democratic establishment has certainly put their Kalshi money and their Polymarket money on Janet Mills. And that, have you felt any sense of any curiosity? Has there been any, hey, Graham, I'm a more establishment guy. You seem to be resonating. What do you think is going on? Or do they view you again through the prism of insurgent? This insurgent must be stopped.
As of late, past few months, there's been a lot more reach out from like individual people, kind of in the like senators. Honestly, I think there are a lot of senators now. There are a bunch of senators like Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Chris Van Hollen, that whole crew. Who Martin Heinrich in New Mexico, who like they reached out early on and have been big supporters really the whole time.
They felt a fellow progressive who they thought, okay, I understand where this fella's coming from.
Totally. So that's been going on since the beginning. Past couple months though, there has been more reach out from, I would say, more kind of like establishment folks. However, and this is the important part, not from the DSCC, not from the DNC, like nobody in the places of power remains interested.
But they're lost, dude.
It's so bad.
They're lost.
And the thing that bothers me the most isn't like, I'm not asking for you to like be my friend. But you should be curious because I'm pulling 40 points ahead.
Right.
At least just reach out and be like, hey, what are you actually? Because they've never spoken ever. I've never gotten a phone call. Like no one's ever reached out. I've never talked to anybody in leadership. No one's ever been interested in which is like kind of baffling.
I think it's because they only know two stories. The two stories are this: you're either a moderate Democrat or you're a left-wing firebrand. And so what they're saying is, oh, sure, the left-wing firebrand, that does well in the primary, but that'll never travel. You know, there is that idea that, well, electability, and there's something crazy about this, as though you are the equivalent of you're the Democratic equivalent of a MAGA loyalist who has come out with wildly controversial positions. And then you talk to you for 5 minutes, you go, oh no, this is based in historical precedent. It has a very literate and literary foundation to it. It has a foundation of lived experience. Like, they should be, again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with Stewart's analysis, which has been kind of off for the past year, about like what actually their perception of him is. They're threatened by his politics. It's not that they think he's unelectable. They see the poll numbers. They are they are threatened by his anti-genocide stance, his anti-billionaire stance. That is what it's about. They're trying
he wants to get rid of the filibuster. He wants to go after the Supreme Court.
Yeah, they want to will his lack of electability into existence.
Yeah, I mean, they're afraid of him becoming the standard for what people demand in the Democratic Party. Any move to the left is a threat to the Democratic Party establishment. And people still want to latch on to the idea that they're just misinformed, or they just don't understand what people want, or they don't realize where the wind is going. And the answer is that no, they understand that thing. The best thing you can say is that they truly believe, because of ideological reasons, that will destroy the country, that's not what's best for the country because they're neoliberals. But they're not confused about what you need to say when you get in front of people, because they all did that in 2020 when they were running in the primary. Like, maybe you can hide behind them thinking it's not viable in the general election, but I don't really believe that either. I think this is about, the Democratic Party being the middle managers between you and Capitol. When you, the worker, asks for a 10% raise, they pretend like they're beleaguered and on your side, and they go like, how about we give you a 2.5% raise? And you go, well, that doesn't, solve my standard of living issues. And they go like, it's the best we can do without bankrupting the company. But what they really mean is like, it's the best we can do without implicating the CEO's bonuses in any way. And so, I think they know. I think it's become clearer and clearer by the way in which they actually impede people that they can't possibly not know. And so, it's just a matter of like, what do we do about that when they do control the levers of power, and they can still pull these tricks to ensure that you don't get out of the primary, and so fewer people hear your message, at least at the highest levels of running, like the president and stuff like that.
And we mentioned the Angie Craig versus Flanagan race in Minnesota. I mean, it's a different situation in that Plattner had outraised Mills, but Flanagan is polling ahead of Craig despite that not being the case. So we've seen that money hasn't necessarily made the impact that it has previously. One, because of the democratizing nature of information sharing on social media, but also because people are acutely aware of corruption in ways that they weren't, say, 10 years ago. And I think, AIPAC and the support for the genocide has been unfortunately, because of the wreckage and, hundreds of thousands of lives destroyed or killed, ruined, people have seen that brutality, and support for it has become, or a lack of support for it has become, an avatar for trustworthiness, or a way for people to understand, oh, you're on my side. And then they look into money more broadly. And what do you know? If you're taking money from AIPAC or the Israeli lobby, you're also likely to be one of those battle-tested Democrats that no one wants anymore.
And this is in a society where the conditions are, if everyone was doing fine, if there was no huge medical debt problem, if you could afford things, then this stuff would be less salient. But here's what this is a Graham Plattner little minute here from his stump speech. But this will resonate with people because of where we are as a country right now.
In 1990, there were fewer than 80 billionaires in the United States. Today, there are over 900. Now, when you look around, do you see a state of Maine that is 10 times wealthier than 1990? Do Mainers have 10 times the free time? Have our wages gone up 10 times? Do we have 10 times the schools? 10 times the hospitals? No, we have less. We have fewer schools, fewer hospitals, fewer young Mainers can afford a place to live. Our paychecks don't go as far. We have to take on extra hours at work just to make rent. The money went somewhere, and it wasn't down here. It was stolen from us. Stolen from us in a rigged system.
Damn. But we have some people. This is a bipartisan opinion. This is
the centrists.
This is when he's sitting on the fence here, and he gets it. He gets it. He can praise certain Democrats too. Tim Pool. Could it be the Nazi tattoo? I actually respect Democrats for saying no to that. Oh, well, that's so that they didn't say no to it.
Sounds
actually.
woke, Tim.
Which Democrats are you talking about? Gosh, it's so surprising that Tim Pool and
John Fetterman
and his new buddy, the son of Benjamin Netanyahu, and Netanyahu himself, is praising the Democrats that smeared Graham Plattner, which include the biggest Zionists in the entire Senate, the head of the Democrats in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, and Kirsten Gillibrand as well, who leads the DSCC. So it's nice that Tim Pool respects that. The thing is that maybe you might love Democratic leadership, Tim, which probably places your opinions about politics within the deeply unpopular range, almost at the same level as your support for Donald Trump. Definitely not on the side of the American public. Yeah, you're with Democratic leadership here. You're with the DNC, Tim Pool. You're not with the people of Maine, who are overwhelmingly supporting Graham Plattner. So the Democrats, the voters, have something different to say.
Yeah, have Fetterman down to West Virginia.
Yes.
Have him drop into the half pipe.
Drive into the studio.
Or roll into the half pipe and lay there. Take me now. Go on.
Oh no, I was just saying they'll think he's Bigfoot if you release him into the wilderness of Appalachia.
I was just joking about how he wants to die, but maybe that wasn't as nice.
He does look like a combination of Bigfoot and Bat Boy.
Yeah, I was thinking Young Frankenstein when they put the abnormal brain in his head.
Right. Oh God, this is really the worst. We are living in a misogynistic version of Poor Things this time.
I can't even.
Yeah. All right. Well, Poor Things was great. No. God, I hate.
No, I saw it. Everything I thought of was too gross.
Okay.
No.
I don't want any imagery like that. Let's hear from Susan Collins, who's got to be quivering a little, thinking about Graham Plattner.
Yeah, as Brian calls her, Madame Collins.
Tell me your reaction to the Mills news.
I'm sure this was a very difficult decision for Governor Mills, and I wish her well. She has devoted her life to public service in the state of Maine in many different capacities. She has served the people of our state, and I'm sure this was a hard decision for her.
Will Plattner be easier to beat in your view?
I'm not going to get into the November election at this point. This is the governor's day, and I think the focus should be on her and her wanting to give her message to the people of Maine.
All right. I like the
What a lovely sentiment.
I love the idea of like losing the Super Bowl or something and being like, this is the New England Patriots Day.
It's probably an easy decision and probably one she's wanted to make for months now.
Yeah, her heart hasn't been in it at all.
Hard to be in it when you're starting at the point she did. I mean, when your opponent in the primary so far ahead of you, and there's nothing you can do or want to do, I should say, because I remember she came out and when it was clear that this was an issue in the primary and Plattner's position on Israel and Palestine was a boon to him, and she just came out as she's like 30, 40 points down, and she's like, no, I stand with Israel. It's like, I want negative 10 more points.
Right.
She thought she could just ride that viral Haktua moment she had with Trump where she said, I'll see you in court or whatever.
Yeah.
Like right into the Senate.
I mean, no, that's actually a really good point because
racking my brain for a second trying to remember her viral Haktua moment before you equated it to the I'll see you in court thing. I was like,
but that generation of politicians thinks that they get one little moment like that and they're like, I'm here. Like, I genuinely think Hillary Clinton decided that it was her turn in 2016 when that meme of her with like the two cell phones on Air Force One happened, and everyone's like, "Well, look at how executive she is," and she's like, "All right, I guess it's my time." Like politicians, they get a little bit of, like, God forbid Cory Booker ever gets something like that.
And I think like obviously this has been mentioned, but I think it's really important to like drive home, specifically in Plattner's case, is that this isn't the usual like progressive versus establishment Democrat sort of primary race we've seen previously, where like, oh, the upstart progressive has rallied these young people together and they're just outnumbering the old people, the older demographic that's backing the establishment Dem. This is not that at all. This is something I think they've never seen before, where you look at Graham Plattner's base who's showing up at these events, and it's not a bunch of young people, although young people support him. It's older, like boomer age people turning out in numbers for the progressive firebrand upstart who's going after the establishment Democrat. Right. Well, no longer now that he's the Democratic nominee, but that was the position he was in, and we were seeing a different dynamic. And I think that is something they should like really try. If they cared about beating Republicans, they would be working, the Democratic Party would be working with Plattner to figure out exactly what he did to appeal to those older people.
They want to avoid that question, right? They want to they want to force through winning their way and riding out Republicans and Trump being so unpopular while still doing it. And they can't thread that needle right now. To bolster your point, Binder, Matt here has an example of one of his recent events in Lubeck, Maine.
Population 1237.
Okay, I mean, this is the most New England looking room I've ever seen.
The average age here
It's a little hippier than the Maine I grew up in.
Okay. Oh,
The big peace sign. I wish.
Oh, well,
I finally saw. There's finally one guy there that looks under the age of 50.
It's the oldest state in the
Right.
country.
You know,
I
think
didn't know it's
50
older than
pegging it
Florida?
too young,
It's older
too. It
than
looks like
Florida.
60 plus.
Yeah, it's because all these grandpas and grandmas are getting everything they know from TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I mean, I think
Chinese
he struck a nerve with
them.
people who are looking for someone who's ready to fight Trump and is speaking out about the issues they care about, and that's a lot of progressives. But maybe in Maine there hasn't been this before. They haven't seen something like this before, and they're all flocking to this one candidate who's finally come along and is speaking to them.
Yeah, and we played yesterday the clip of Ken Martin, the DNC chair, getting just like for 20 straight minutes questioned by John Favreau of Pod Save America about why the DNC won't release its autopsy report. And those guys have also been pretty supportive of Plattner as well. And they don't share our full politics, of course, some of them, but it's about winning. Like, they actually care about winning. and I think it's the same reason that Gallego, who voted for the frickin' Laken Riley Act, is kind of trying to cozy up to Plattner as well. There are Democrats who want to, who are institutionally, they're incapable of changing their politics and the way that they do politics, like a Schumer or a Gillibrand, where it's all about bundling and big money donors and supporting capital, and they want to maintain the power structure that empowers them, right? If that's the way that the Democratic Party operates, they'll still maintain a position of power within the Democratic Party. But if that shifts and there's more voices like Plattner's in there that are making it more difficult for them to operate in a business as usual manner, then their position is threatened. They may not lose their seat, but they may not be important within the context of the institutional part of the party anymore. So, I don't know how you can look at, like, Gillibrand's already trying to chair the DSCC again, and they've been an abject failure, the two of Gillibrand operating with Schumer.
I mean, those people have basically commodified politics for the richest people in the world.
Yep.
And they sell, and that's all their messaging is catered towards. So Gillibrand, when she called Zoran, like, what?
He said he was going to usher in global jihad. She's a racist, and she said that publicly and then had to walk it back.
And that's an insane thing to say in public. It's a smart thing to say when you're talking to the type of people who donate to either party.
Yeah. Read some IMs. We'll do some more clips. Maine Baker, Binder is totally right about Plattner's appeal. In my experience, the majority of Plattner volunteers have been normie boomers. They don't necessarily see him as any radical departure. They just see him as a fighter and refreshingly bullshit free.
I mean, what we've seen. Yeah, go ahead, Binder.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been a trend too. Like, it's not just Plattner. Like, older people, boomer age people under Trump have become more and more, I don't know if I'll say left wing, like they're not like, maybe some of them are. I'm sure there are some who are joining DSA and stuff, but they've definitely been more progressive than they traditionally are. They have moved further to the left. They've become very anti-Trump. They're willing to vote for progressive candidates, whatever it takes to defeat Donald Trump. Whereas, people typically assume that the older, and this shows in polls too, people usually assume that older people, 60, 65 plus, are more conservative. And that's definitely not true. On the flip side, I think there are generations that have moved more conservative, like Gen X, not all Gen Xers. But we've been seeing this sort of flip of what we presume certain age groups vote for over the past 4 or 5 years.
Right. I mean, the boomer Trump's base is still like the conservative one, but in like a Democratic primary, all bets are off. All bets are off. Those older voters are also more likely to identify with one party. I mean, the most growing political constituency in this country is independents, and that's very heavily weighted towards young people. And so, it's to your point, there's a lot of stereotypes that don't really bear out in fact about different cohorts of voters. Julio Drinks Don Julio says, it's absolutely going to piss me off if this opportunity to bring in a victory on the scale of 06-08 is going to be ruined by the idiotic Democratic leadership.
Yeah, they're going to be a drag.
Definitely not going to be maximizing what we could have. But I do think that there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm to vote for Democrats. We'll just say that. Certain Democrats. We have to get through this primary process first. God, I can't believe that Michigan primary isn't until August. This is such a long primary road in this Michigan Senate race. It's really astounding that their primary isn't until August, but it feels like this trio of candidates, Haley Stevens, Mallory McMorrow, and Abdul Al-Sayed, have been running for so long. But this clip's a little longer than the race has been. We should just keep circulating this because this psychopathic view needs to be, advertised, I think, so people know what they're getting into with someone like Haley Stevens. This is Stevens in Detroit in 2023, giving a speech at a menorah lighting. She's not Jewish, right? She's not. She's not. I'm 99% sure. I'm just saying, like, listen to how she's talking about Israel, and again, Judaism and Zionism, not the same, not connected. Okay. Just another example that Christian Zionists and Christians who talk like this exist and are just as much of a problem.
Yeah.
And it's not about your religion. It's about a belief in nationalism as it relates to Israel and a belief in colonialism and a capture by a donor class
Exactly.
that believes in that.
She's not Jewish, but she is a politician.
And here she is saying, hey, donors, fund my campaign in 2023.
And in the United States Congress,
Oh, God.
I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future, and I know that Israel will continue to exist for the Jewish people.
Oh, they look fired up.
You all so very much.
We love you too. Not really.
When was this?
2023.
December.
Oh,
So it was after October 7th. And so she was saying that Israel comes to her in her dreams, and she has visions about Israel and its future as a segregated ethno-state that is just for the Jewish people, and that involves the forcible ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from the land that was once theirs.
I have dreams like I forgot a class and I'm still in college, and I hadn't been going to a class all semester. I haven't had the dream of
I have
Israel's
that same
future.
dream.
Yeah, I know.
I have that same dream. It happens all the time. That's so weird that we have that dream.
Yeah, huge millennial anxiety dream. But yeah, for some reason, Gen X was like being naked in front of people for some reason like that. But yeah, I've never had the dream of like Israel's future, and also for Jewish people, even though we're told sometimes that it's a multi-ethnic democracy, which of course is propaganda.
You've never had a vision about Israel's future? I mean, what is she trying to
not
imply
possible.
here? That she's basically some sort of earthly vessel for God's will about the state of Israel?
She's Christian, but yeah.
But non-denominational. It's not even like she's like one of these evangelical freaks. Like, she sounds like Mike Huckabee, but Mike Huckabee really believes the rapture is coming. I don't know what the hell Haley Stevens believes except cash, cash, cash in my pocket.
I think we should take it easy
yeah.
on her, and I think we should have her on the show and give her a softball interview so that she stays. And not to overstate our impact, but so we can contribute to her staying in the race.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is she has to see this through all the way to the end.
She sounds like a solid candidate to me.
I agree.
And she's more authentic than McMorrow.
We believe in a big tent, a big, big, big tent.
She's like a Professor X type. She'd be very good in Senate. She can see into the future.
That is so helpful in leadership. She's got that orb that Trump was putting his hands on. She can see into the future, and she sees that Israel It's gonna be completely ethnically cleansed. That's so beautiful.
It's a crazy speech. Like, I don't even talk that passionately about things I'm actually passionate about. like I mean, I guess if she really wanted to try to get back in there, she could, like, you know, she said it was a dream, but she could be like, did I say dream? I mean, I had nightmares of Israel. Okay, it's nightmares.
Right. I have some of those. This is also another. Let's play this Schlossberg clip here. So crackhead Barney is a woman on what?
I'm glad you know, because I had a hard time setting it up because I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yes, crackhead Barney is a funny kind of, I don't know, New York character.
Provocateur.
Who interviews politicians sometimes and does other viral content. She interviewed Zoran Mamdani and he did extremely well
Very
in that
graceful,
interview
yeah.
in the primary. I remember that. I don't think it went as well with Cuomo. Right?
I don't remember the Cuomo one. That's...
Maybe I'm dreaming of
Cuomo trying to hug her or something.
I forget.
That sounds right. It sounds like him.
It sounds right, but maybe I'm just having visions into the future, like Haley Stevens is about the state of Israel. But speaking of Israel, crackhead Barney asks Jack Schlossberg, who is running in New York's 12th district, about his stance on Israel, and he kind of just like almost completely shuts down.
Yep.
I don't know what she's wearing, but
I mean, pretty much the standard crackhead body.
okay, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of more face paint than usual.
Also,
I feel like.
I will know crackhead Barney does a good job of making sure the Venmo and I think Cash App things are all over the screen.
Okay.
Why should we vote for you? We got to get money out of politics. I do not have a super PAC, a corporate PAC, and I don't take money from AI companies. We will never have no kings as long as billionaires can buy elections. Can you say free Palestine? What? I'm not going to say. Wait, why can't you say free Palestine? Because that's not what we're here for. So what are we here for? Can you say fuck Israel, Jack? No way, dude. Wait, but you just said you can't. Well, fuck Israel. No, do you like Zionism? We're not talking about that right now. So what are we talking about? You said no kings. Oh, come on. Okay, Jack, this is where you... So we're trying to get Jack elected, but we could not say free Palestine, and he's a Kennedy.
I love a Kennedy saying we can't have no kings.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
American royal family.
Just good. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's polling a little bit ahead in that district, and there isn't that, you
It's
know.
embarrassing. Because what's Conway's the other person there?
There's also Michael Lasher, who is the endorsed candidate by Nadler, who was, you know, one of the better half of Democrats in the House for a while. So I still need to look more into that race, but Schlossberg would not be my pick for sure.
I mean, I'm pretty uninterested in anything I've seen from that, and it speaks to a party that is completely lost when it comes to particularly its wealthier districts.
Yep. Brooklyn progressive crackhead.
I mean, sorry, I'm still not over Latimer replacing Bowman up in the Bronx.
Yeah. Where's he been?
He was recently speaking out against anti-Semitism. There was apparently a flyer that was put in a urinal that was for a pro-Israel flyer that was put in a urinal, and so it's a really big problem. They're trying to get to the bottom of who put the Israel flyer in the urinal, so Latimer has been really focused on that lately.
I wish that it was me, honestly. I wish I did that. I wish I was funny enough to, or have access
Seen
to
coming out of a men's bathroom.
access to a urinal, so I could have done that.
That's a big thing in army barracks. The stickers in the urinals.
Here it is.
Yeah.
I am deeply disturbed by the reports of an anti-Semitic incident at Scarsdale High School. These reports demand a thorough investigation, and
At a high school?
Every individual responsible must be held fully accountable. At the time of Jewish communities face, again, this is about a flyer, a pro-Israel flyer, put into a urinal. Facing heightened threats of hostility, students deserve to feel safe in their schools, places meant for learning. Yeah, we know what schools are. No student should have to walk into their classroom or indeed the bathroom, urinal, blah, blah, blah. He will continue to advocate for an end to anti-Semitism.
I'm glad he's on that. I'm glad he's on that. Electile dysfunction. I had a dream of a train running from Gaza throughout the whole Middle East and there finally being peace, but we live in the dark timeline.
I mean, that would be a nice dream.
Yep. Teishu, Zionism needs to be recognized as a cult. People wonder why some fall so easily into cults, and obviously dealing with conditioning from religious upbringing plays a huge role. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the way like the Nazis sort of had cult, like even down to the mythologies and stuff like that.
Polished concrete counter tabletop issues says it seems like Kamala is going to be the candidate before the midterms. Watch support for the Dems collapse. No one wants Kamala.
People
to
gotta
be the
relax
nominee.
about early polling
Yes.
based on like name recognition. I think like
I mean, 2008 is an example. I mean, you know, like Obama, no one anticipated him to defeat Hillary Clinton in 2008.
this party could nominate Kamala again, and they will lose the election if they do.
Tortellini reform. Matt says he's scared of Cory Booker having his moment, but has he already forgotten his record-breaking speech that accomplished absolutely nothing of substance? Between that and the Michigan fist, I wouldn't be surprised if he's lubing up to run for president. Of course he is. That's why he got married, too.
But see, it's like if one of those things catches genuinely, like the Hillary 2 phones thing. Genuinely, people were sharing that, thinking like, look how cool this photo is, which is it's hard to believe now.
I mean, but you know what photo is going to travel more is him hiding in the picture with Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, people are over this.
Yeah, he's not going to.
I don't want to look. I didn't think Biden had a chance to win in 2020, so I'm not going to. And I was very wrong about Kamala winning the general. So, yeah, I'm not going to. I'm out of the business of making predictions right now. But I just can't see anybody that is AIPAC aligned making it out.
Buttigieg would also be a nightmare.
He's going to have plausible deniability, though. McMorrow's campaign reminds me of a Buttigieg campaign.
Yeah.
The People's Eyebrow. Emma read my M. I'm never going to wash my phone again. Okay. Miss Buggles, what is MR's take on the New York 12 race? It's a race of flop men. We kind of just said I need to actually do more research into this before I speak about it.
About what?
New York 12, which we just kind of talked about with Schlossberg. My sense is that Lasher is better, but I still need to look into it more.
It's a mid off.
Yeah, it's not good. Illuminati Kids, a Dream IDF cover of Cheap Trick's Dream Police is definitely on Mike Huckabee's next set list.
Remember Sweet Home Jerusalem?
Yes. Brooklyn Progressive, Crackhead Barney is a New York City treasure. Mad Men Theorist, where were the No Kings protesters when Charles spoke at the U.S. Congress telling us we must go to war with Russia? Oh yeah, liberals fully support war with Russia. Also, entire Congress gave the king a standing ovation, by the way. Also, how do we feel about Zelensky aligning with Netanyahu? Ukraine is aligning with anybody in the West that they can possibly align with for the continued flow of weapons. And Zelensky doing that is not surprising to me. Does not mean that it's not immensely hypocritical, but as is the United States' support for Ukraine when you compare it to our support for Israel. Like, we have lost credibility in our support for Ukraine because of our support for Israel. So there's hypocrisies all across the board, but...
Zelensky's starting another front with Israel.
Right. I mean, that's the same reason that the UAE is doing a defense pact with Ukraine. It's about aligning yourself with Western interests. And Matt of Minnesota, he just got married just to get a foot in on the election. Do people believe anything authentically? They're like political robots beholden to the algorithm. It's like a cult. Well, you know, the thing is I don't know that for sure. I don't know that Cory Booker just got married to run for president for sure, but it's something that happens. Tim Scott also got engaged.
I mean, politicians will move to a different district that they never have in just because they want to run in that district. So would they make life decisions based on that too, looking down the line? Yes, of course they would.
And I'm from New Jersey, and like, you know, have been rumors about Cory Booker since he was mayor of Newark for why he was a bachelor all the time. And there are traditional politicians think that is going to sink their campaign. But I just think Cory Booker is probably lying to himself that that's what would sink his campaign.
The massive history of Zionism.
Yes. All right, let's look at some clips here. Let's do 11. I wanted to make sure, and then we'll do Erica Kirk. want to touch on this really quickly because I was so encouraged to see this from AOC. We can pull up the initial tweet here from April 6th. This is a really disturbing trend that I can't stand in the Democratic Party. And I really like Chris Van Hollen. This was something I know Sam, when I wasn't in studio, pressed him on this when they were having a conversation. But NBC News' Sahil Kapoor had an article some weeks ago. New tax cuts are the hottest new idea for Democrats. Booker and Van Hollen, both 2028 prospects, unveil big tax cut plans. Katie Porter says exempt $100K in income for California taxes. Keisha Lance Bottoms says exempt teachers from Georgia taxes. Pitched as an answer to cost of living struggles. Now, I can't stand this. Kapoor doesn't mention this, but Kamala Harris also did this asinine thing in the 2024 race. When Trump gives this no tax on tips thing, she goes, oh, me too. Because the idea that Democrats can't talk about significant tax increases, specifically on the wealthy, to fund their programs, but instead, I mean, they'll say this is in addition, we'll cut taxes, but it undercuts what taxes are about and what government should be about. Taxes should go to government, not to fund genocide, not to fund wars, but to fund social services. And we have gutted the tax base really since the 1950s progressively, but specifically under Reagan. And there needs to be more taxation. Just simply, that's the case. Obviously, we should tax billionaires out of existence and fund programs based on that. But how do our most durable social programs get funded? Social Security and Medicare. Via the payroll tax. We should lift the cap on Social Security so that the wealthy people are paying into Social Security, for example, so that the trust fund doesn't run dry. That is a solution there for the wealthier to pay more in taxes on Social Security. It's not to give these tax cuts here that don't have a long-term vision about what Democrats are providing to people. And AOC articulated this best when she responded to this. This is her quote. We just lost it. Here it is. This race is to try to see who can be exempt from participating in society is not a conversation that I'm interested in. I'm a great society Democrat, and I believe in building that together. And I think that the discourse around everyone, let's all be like billionaires and opt out of our taxes, I don't find it an inspiring message. Here. This is about who has a vision for what government's supposed to do and who is throwing out cheap popularist chum to try to win the next election. The question is, how do we build a durable, lasting coalition, a New Deal style coalition that can sustain power for a while? And it's one that has boldness of vision and involves making government work for people in the way that Mamdani has done, but obviously on the federal level that involves taxation. So I was just happy to see her do that. It's also Bernie Sanders has not been as good on this as her.
We had Van Hollen on this show, and Sam said to talk to him a little bit about that up top. And it is like this whole thing of like, okay, we're going to lower working people's taxes but raise rich people's. Again, even that, it sucks, because what I cynically view that as is, and apologies to Van Hollen and Bernie, I'm just saying how I read this, is a way to stop regular working people having any sense of like ownership over what our government's doing. We're doing wars for rich people. Let's just make sure rich people are the main ones with skin in the game. Everyone should have skin in the game, and our government shouldn't be doing this sort of bullshit. And it should be, like AOC says, going toward a great society. And this is actually why, like, we've been sort of lukewarm about universal basic income and that sort of stuff too. The government needs to provide this stuff.
Yep.
You cannot rely on the market to provide this stuff and just leave people a little bit more cash at the end of it. The government needs to do healthcare. The government needs to take control of education. These sorts of things need to be taken control of by the state. Not just you give the state less money and go figure it out yourself.
It's because the private industry and the monopolies have we're seeing this with this one big ugly ass bill with these tax cuts. It has no impact on affordability because price gouging is just the way of the world at this point. Specifically, it's been hypercharged since COVID, where there were, due to supply chain bottlenecks, increases in prices that caused inflation because of the once-in-a-lifetime pandemic and all the disruption that it caused. But then you saw around 2022, 2023, 2024, corporations understand that they could artificially keep prices high, and they took home record returns. Now, has Trump cutting taxes solved that? No. In fact, inflation is getting worse, and we're on the brink of likely another recession, not in small part due to the fact that Trump started this insane war with Iran that Iran is winning. But putting that aside, more money in circulation and being funneled back to private industry is not going to solve the issues of the basic problem that we do not guarantee healthcare as a right in this country, that we've allowed middlemen in insurance companies to jack up prices and to deny people's medical care as they take money hand over fist from your pocket every month. It's not about a lack of purchasing power with money being in circulation for people. It's the fact that private entities have gotten out of control and there's not sufficient enforcement by the federal government, and the driving down, the way that costs could be driven down is by having actual public services that bring these private price gougers to heel. And you fund those public services via taxation. There you go. DMash says by 2028, AOC will have been in Congress for 10 years. Wow. God, that's crazy to think about. Mike Lindell's crack plug. I don't see the comparisons with funding Ukraine and funding Israel. One is defending their country from an offensive aggressor, and the other is actively committing a genocide, among other horrific things. I think you misunderstood what I said. I'm saying that we've lost credibility in our funding of Ukraine and Russia's illegal invasion, and how that's wrong, by funding Israel that's committing genocide, which is wrong. I am pointing out what hurts the United States standing on that issue.
Yeah, I mean, as we said at the start of Ukraine, even before October 7th, when America is trying to rally the entire world, saying, hey, we need to defend against, aggressor states taking land using military conquest, all of y'all need to join us in this. And people were confused as to why countries in the global south weren't listening to America. Is because America was supporting Israel doing that in Gaza and the West Bank as even before the Russia invasion happened. It's frankly one of the original sins of the post World War II world order that has caused it to entirely unravel, and we're at the very beginning of that unraveling now. And it really opened the door up for what we're seeing in Gaza after, and it, like you said, it made it difficult to have a world reaction against Ukraine. So instead, what we've decided is it's going to be a military-industrial testing ground.
And Dark Soul says we're very clearly not funding Ukraine for any altruistic reasons. No one is claiming as such. It's about the fact that Ukraine is in the American sphere of influence, and we had a defense pact with them when they denuclearized. And the United States, as a part of, and NATO, I guess, and Europe, this is a part of like the alliances and the assurances that were given, and also because the United States, from a great power perspective, wants to limit Russia's expansion. Yeah, so we don't need to say that they're doing it for altruistic reasons to have an analysis. Like, this is what bothers me sometimes about geopolitical analysis. When you're making like just factual claims about power, and people get all up in their feels. No, this is the bad guy, this is the good guy. No, we're talking about we're talking about capitalism, we're talking about war, we're talking about alliances. And there are no actors that are inherently like righteous, except really, all of these struggles of power, of conquest, of colonialism, what have you, the aggressor and the victim, they act in concert with one another, and you can't disaggregate the victim from the aggressor. and they act in relation to one another, and we should be fighting for liberation for all people for that reason, without making fairy tale Marvel moral judgments about the actors in this case and and states in their character. It is like Disney level understanding of how power and violence and money works in this world.
I don't even know what this person was originally.
And I'm not even
I'm
not saying that, like, I agree with you. Of course we're not doing it for altruistic reasons. It's just like I don't
But
know
also,
why
like,
we have
Russia-
to clarify that every single time. It's
Russia is not in the same position that, say, Palestinians were. Like, they're not they're not fighting a war opposing an occupation. All of the critiques of NATO that we have, and I would stand by everything we said leading up into the Russian invasion against time to move on from NATO, and I still believe all that.
Yeah.
Russia's the aggressor. They started the war. They started the military occupation. They're sending their young people into a conflict to get killed by drones. It's not the fucking good guys.
And yeah. And there is no comparison, of course, to Gaza in the sense that the United States is backing Ukraine, or has, and we're seeing something. We're seeing a shift in public rhetoric from the Trump administration, but it's not really changing the arms that are flowing there, because arms dealers got to get rich here in the United States. So you can see that it's amoral in that way, in terms of like what the United States' incentives are there. But there is no comparison. There is no comparison to Gaza. Gaza is an open air concentration camp. They have no airports. They have no air defense. They have some guns there that Hamas has, but they don't have
They have no military at all.
They have no military. Right. Israel controls their borders, land and sea. Like, they can control what food and what baby formula gets in and out. There are reports that they're sending in narcotics there. I mean,
what's the comparison? Sorry, just to back up. What is this person's original beef? Because I'm not even aware of what comparison
I
was
lost
made.
the through line too. I'm not sure what.
No, I'm not even really responding at this point to to Dark Soul, who was just saying that there's we're not defending Ukraine for moral reasons. It's just a trigger for broader, debates that we've had before. And I just wish that we were talking about foreign policy in a smarter way. It's why when we have Scahill on, it's like, I value those conversations so much, because he's talking to actually Iranian negotiators and isn't just putting them up as some sort of scary, Muslim boogeyman that is so just motivated by pure religion that they are unable to actually, be earnest negotiating partners. And that's how Western media portrays them versus how Ukrainians are portrayed. Anyway. All right, we got to do this Erica Kirk thing, I think, right? What number is this? Okay.
Oh, sorry. It's
number 666. Erica Kirk.
Erica Kirk, I guess, just got done, I don't know, parachuting off a building after a heist or something. I'm not sure why she's dressed like Jason Bourne. It doesn't seem to make a ton of sense.
She works for like a company like transporting bank vault contents.
Right. It's very Ocean's 11. We just lost Matt Binder.
She's got to finish debriefing Solid Snake from his final mission.
Yeah, it's very spooky, this monologue that she gives. She's taken over the big chair. Charlie Kirk, her husband, who I'm not sure people are aware he died. And so now
they still got his chair next to her. You can put this up. And she's just in a gamer chair. Is that what's going on here?
Oh, no, they still do the show. It's just not with Charlie Kirk. It's with two of the other TPUSA guys. So this is a special missive, and she's just sitting in the chair.
Well, she's not you could see the chair on the right there, and she's in a different chair. I don't know.
It's for Charlie.
Boots and a rifle with a helmet on the rifle.
Of course,
Instead, it's a podcasting chair, which is appropriate. I say this as a podcaster myself, but here she is. with this very, I don't know, disturbing monologue or just weird monologue.
In this culture we're living in absorbs disagreement as a form of personal betrayal. It turns having an opposing viewpoint into a moral crime worthy of punishment. And here's what I've realized through all of this, truly, having lived through quite literal hell these past 7 months, if you strip someone of their humanity long enough, you will arrive at the chilling conclusion that they don't deserve to exist at all. Every morning I wake up to a new headline lying about me. I have comedians dressing up in whiteface. I have people saying I'm not fit to be CEO, and I have Candace Owens claiming I murdered my...
The Candace Owens thing is, we can get to that in a second. You stepped into the role.
Yeah, you're in front of a microphone. Stop complaining. You're getting attention. I do just like, okay, look, Candace Owens saying you murdered her husband. I can understand you being a little upset
I would
about
probably
that.
be upset if somebody in a similar situation said that I murdered somebody.
But she wanted a list.
She wanted a list.
And the list is pretty short.
The first two are Drewski in whiteface and a wig. And then the other one was...
I'm not fit to be CEO.
Which, girl, I don't know. I mean, maybe look inward.
I seem to be complaining about the pressures of it quite a lot.
Yeah.
But also, who said that she can't be a CEO? Her
Candace
husband,
Owens.
who was constantly preaching that women should be at home and letting the man do the work. I mean, this is something her own deceased husband preached. He's the one who said she couldn't be CEO.
We are supposed to forget about all that. He's a patron saint, Binder.
To a new headline lying about me. I have comedians dressing up in whiteface. I have people saying I'm not fit to be CEO. And I have Candace Owens claiming I murdered my husband. And the list goes on and on and on.
Why don't you list it then?
Go on vacation. I don't know.
There is a serious epidemic of dehumanization plaguing this country. The most unthinkable tragedies have now become commonplace in our daily headlines, and yet the media finds a way to conveniently explain away violence. This is what we're up against. This is what we're up against.
Wait, violence. When you say violence, do you mean, are you counting or not counting gang violence?
What is happening right now is something none of us can afford to ignore. The evil forces working to divide us, to distract us, and to pull us apart has never been stronger. This is a moment for Americans to come together and decide what kind of country we are going to be before we lose our country altogether. In Romans chapter 12, verse 21, it says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." And this is why my husband created Turning Point USA, so we could have civil discourse and debate and open dialogue, because when we stop talking to each other, bad things happen. I am choosing to fight for America, for my children, for your children, and for our humanity, because we all need to do our part. And by the grace of God, we will succeed, and America will remain what she was always called to be, a shining city on a hill, a light to the world. So let me give you a perfect example of how it's done. My husband did it best and left us the blueprint on how to have uncomfortable conversations with those who disagree.
A certain skin color. Now
Buckle up, everybody.
Your own summertime celebration.
Are there no acting coaches in Arizona?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, no, she's got to go to.
She's doing a Candace impression, that delivery, like, and I'm actually thinking like this.
Well, I mean, you can tell it's the Candace stuff has really gotten under
You
her
can tell
skin.
by her outfit. She's really upset. She's been forced to work as a caterer.
All right. Well, I have no commentary on that except to say that girl's nuts.
It's
Woman's
super
nuts.
bizarre. And I just think she's responding to things that most people aren't really saying, because after the shooting at the White House Correspondents Association, videos going around of like Erica Kirk crying and maybe signaling to people. So of course the conspiracy people were like, oh, obviously she was in on it. Like 2 fake shootings. I mean, come on, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is the way to disabuse people of those beliefs, right? It just comes across as incredibly suspicious, especially when you dress like you're a member of the Rhythm Nation, just like coming out there. And and that's what Candace said, because Candace has already responded to this particular thing. And I will say, I thought Charlie Kirk started TPUSA to make like Trayvon Martin jokes, like to put Trayvon Martin's face over like the awkward penguin meme from 12 years ago and go like no angel or whatever.
Yeah, it's and the way that she stares into the camera with such ferocity, I think that she might want to, just
soften
relax
it up a little
bit. Yeah, just soften it up a little bit. Relax, girl.
You don't need to run the organization.
Right. But this is a mutually beneficial thing for Candace Owens and Erica Kirk, as she pretends to be the victim of rhetoric. Obviously, her husband dying is awful, but like as she pretends to be the victim, they are just playing out this soap opera for everybody to see, because TPUSA was never about the exchange of ideas. It was about promoting hate and propaganda. And right now, the right is kind of in shambles because the dear leader is so deeply unpopular that they are capitalizing on their platforms with drama. And everybody loves to see 2 women fighting. Just watch Real Housewives and you'll understand why people like it. Although I get sentimental about them and start to have like loving feelings for them and appreciate sometimes the scenes where they're nice to each other more. And everyone I know says that's very stupid. But most people seem to like the drama of those shows. So
the talent gap between this beef is insane, though.
Yeah, I know.
It's like so wild.
It really is like the Harlem Globetrotters, and that's Candace Owens.
But you have to wonder, do you think Erica Kirk thinks she's doing well when like she comes dressed like this? Do you think that she thinks that she's doing the right thing? I don't know how you could.
Well, everybody around her is probably just a yes man.
Yeah.
Because they just want to keep trying to print money.
Yeah, I'd be like, can't you just pick up any random thing out of your wardrobe rather than looking like...
Well, she's on her way to kill Candace, maybe.
Yeah.
She pulls down a balaclava.
Yeah. And I'm right outside your house.
A cat burglar.
Ostentatious says, Emma, you can't play Erica Kirk without playing Jennifer's response. I haven't seen Jennifer's response yet. Welch, I guess. To Candace. To Erica. Midwest Mailman, are we sure Candace and Erica aren't collaborating behind the scenes to create controversy for mutual views and attention?
No, we're not sure.
We're not
They
sure.
famously had a meeting like early on last year when this was all kicking off. And Candace Owens wasn't transparent about what was happening in that 3-hour meeting. And for the briefest of moments, some of her audience was like, are we getting played here? And
Right.
I think that's all gone now.
Tayshu, Erica Kirk is the 21st century Lucille Bluth. Lucille Bluth was funny.
Yeah. I don't see it.
Ramona Frankenstein, Erica Kirk dressed like her future husband is going to ask her if she ever once said thank you to the president. I don't get it. Great Escape Scrounger. Erica Kirk, the most aggrieved woman in the world. I don't always drink, but when I do, I drink organic, all organic liberal tears. Turlet, she's dressed like a sniper.
Well, maybe maybe TPUSA isn't a bunch of yes men, and maybe she had to break into the studio just to make that video.
Right.
No, it's immersion therapy. Sometimes you have to embody what you're afraid of. And so like with all of these traumatic incidents in her life, they've just like, you just got to dress like a sniper from now on. Just like, you'll feel a lot more confident. You are the shooter, Erica. You are the shooter.
Retrace the steps. All right, 5 more. We're going to get out of here. Kami Tommy, we should have a slap competition between Erica and Candace Owens to see who gets kirked. All right.
If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
The Fogo excursions. She's complaining about whiteface. She's literally dressed like Janet Jackson. She is dressed like Janet Jackson.
That was the Rhythm Nation thing.
Right. Yeah. I forgot.
Well,
I hadn't put the connection in my head. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she said like comedians have dressed up like her, but I can only think of one comedian who has done whiteface to dress up like her. The rest of them, I think, already are white.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is Drewski a comedian?
Yeah, online comedian.
I don't know anything about him except for that. Yeah, there you go. Wow. Janet, the difference is Janet looks cool. He's got that the shoulder pads. Did you know that she's not featured in the Michael Jackson movie at all? They just cut her out.
She asked not to be.
Yeah, I mean,
I get it.
I get it, but it's just hilarious. Like, isn't it about his rise in the 80s and she's at the same time like becoming a pop superstar and they just don't mention it at all? Yeah. All right, 5 more. Devoid reality. What's with Kirk's sparkling pupils? I don't know. Rory and Minnesota, did you all see the parody Jennifer and Pumps did of Erica Kirk? I lost my mind laughing this morning at Jen. I mean, I guess this is making the rounds. Wow. I got to check it out after the show. Sickle up economy. I know it's been said a million times, but those eyes are absolutely terrifying. Gulf Coast Grit. MI went to a non-denominational K through 12 school. They're just as nuts as the declared evangelicals and also hyper-Zionists.
As a Catholic, I just don't quite understand what the point is.
Yeah.
Once you get in that schismatic, but you know, what do I'm just an atheist now.
And the final I am of the day. Trump's orange orangutan titties. Like Vamp in Metal Gear Solid 2, so did Erica Kirk survive by drinking her family's blood, developing a taste for it, and realizing she's bisexual. Okay, all right. I didn't get that one, so I'm going to do one more.
I didn't either.
One more. Kowalski from Nebraska. If I recall, at the beginning of the Ukraine conflict, the United States was hard-pressed to get anyone to believe us because we had shattered our credibility time and time again during the war on terror. A year into the Ukraine war, NATO had been reinvigorated, and the United States looked more powerful than ever, taking command of our alliance structures all over the world, and then we immediately pissed away all that we had gained, helping Ukraine by aiding in a genocide that the President of the United States can stop with a phone call at any moment. Absolutely right.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is even the CIA was saying Russia's probably not going to invade, so which is why I didn't think they were
Right.
either. And yeah, they're on that part they were wrong, but I think everything else about that was you're right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught.